Well, you know that music. It means it's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you getting underway here on this Friday, end of the week, heading into a weekend, another week of Lent behind us. This is going too fast for me, but hope it's going great for you. I'm Jerry Usher, along with Debbie Georgiani, and we have the show team in place. Our producer is Charles Beery. On the phones is Matt Gabinski, and Michael McCall is watching your conversations on Facebook and YouTube. So hello to all of you. Hi, Deb.
Wait a minute. Did you say Lent is going too fast for you?
It's flying by.
Oh, it's not going.
Almost halfway through.
It's not going fast enough for me. That's amazing that you said that. I like that. But that's you're working at the Basilica, so you've got probably a lot of activities and a lot of things planned. So you always have probably something to do, which is that makes Lent go by pretty quickly. But today on Take Two, folks, we are asking you the question: is there another time in world history in which you would have wished you had lived? Okay, another time in history that you wish you had lived. We hear all the time, back in the day. Oh, those were the days, right? Well, we want to know, is there a certain time period in history that you wish you had lived rather than today? If give it a few minutes to think about it, and then call in, because Matt Gabinski's waiting for your call. Like Jerry said, Charles is at the controls. He's our producer, and Michael McCall is on social media. You can leave your post comment there as well. Here's the number, 833-288-3986. And Jerry, I think you're going to be surprised at my answer.
Well, I'm waiting. You want to reveal it now, or do you want to wait a couple of minutes?
Well, it's interesting because, you and I always talk about, the 1950s, this or that, or, there's so much more peaceful back then and stuff like that. But, the more I started thinking and praying about it, I actually am really glad I'm born right now, today, in this time. Because the more I think about it, the more I go into prayer about it, God equips everybody for where they are placed in history. Mm-hmm. And so I know it's kind of crazy times we're in, but I'm kind of glad it's here and now.
Yeah, well, that's good because you can't do anything about it. So it's good that you like it.
True.
What about you, Take Two family? Are you a history buff? Do you know certain eras of history, times in world history? Is there another time you wish you had been? It's kind of a make-believe exercise that we're doing today. If there is, 833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986. And of course, all of us could probably say we wish we were alive at the time of Jesus. That'd be an obvious.
You really would have wanted to be? You would have wanted to see him be crucified?
No, well, not necessarily, but I would have liked to have seen him do the miracles and be one of his disciples, maybe.
I was just going to say, what if you weren't picked as one of the disciples? Then you'd be really bummed.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, so maybe I don't wish I was alive then.
I talked you out of that time period, right?
833-288-3986. I have mentioned on the show before, I think the 1950s, and in terms of recent periods of time would have been kind of a cool time to be alive, with the, Happy Days, type of life and all of that, or Leave It to Beaver. What was that, the 1960s? But other than that, I don't know. There are just so many different wonderful times, when times of renewal, times of revival in the church. Of course, there have been tumultuous times in world history as well, when God has raised up amazing men and women to become saints and to help not only civil society but the church to build the kingdom of God. So Take Two family, let's make this a great Friday broadcast today with your participation. Is there another time, any time in world history, when you wish you had been alive and lived in that period? 833-288-3986. I
think our generation sometimes talks about the 50s being so much more wholesome and, just a simpler way of life. But, it had its problems. There were abuses that took place during the 50s. There was a lot of clericalism, things like that. There was all sorts of things that happened that, didn't allow people to fully express what was going on. So, I don't know, Jerry. The more I think about it now, I don't know if I'd go back to the 50s. I used to say that because I love watching those retro comedies, those sitcoms. But Honestly, I don't know. I mean, this is the part I do like. I do like that men were much more chivalrous back then, right?
Yeah.
I think that is a beautiful thing. Although, there's people I know that have studied history, and they've said, it had a lot of problems. There were a lot of domestic issues and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I've changed my mind. I think I'm growing up because I started to change the way I think about things. I think I'm finally starting to grow up, just to let you know.
All right. Well, I'll let you know when that happens for me, too. 833-288-3986. You can email us, take2@EWTN.com. The show website is take2show.com with the number 2, take2show.com. Post your comments there. We have the 24-hour prayer tab as well. And also, if you're watching, again, on YouTube or Facebook, hi, you guys. We love having you there, watching the video stream and weighing in on the conversation today. Michael McCall will get some of your takes over to us. Again, it's 833-288-3986.
Okay, so this is just a personal note to everybody who's on Facebook and YouTube, because I already got the comments this morning that you're going to see if I show up today and how I'm feeling. I am feeling better. Thank you so much. You can hear I still have a lot of head stuff going on, and my head feels like a big solid brick. But I will tell you that your prayers are working, and I just want to thank you so very much. So I'm still alive. I'm still vertical, and that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. It's good to have you back on video.
Thank you. I don't feel I'm just trying not to move too quickly in case I fall over or something. So it's a strange thing that's going around. A lot of people are dealing with it, and it's lingering. And I feel bad for everybody that we're all kind of suffering from something, that can hang on. We're getting a lot of calls, but you know what's interesting? You guys are calling in and maybe making a comment and dropping off. We'd love to hear your voice. So please stay on, because we'd like to talk to you about that time period. So don't just call in and say, hey, Matt, tell him the 1940s, or hey, Matt, tell him the 1950s. We want to hear the reasons why. 833-288-3986.
All right, we will get to your calls in just a couple of moments here. We're getting set to just pause real briefly here. And some phone lines are open. We got Abraham in Massachusetts, Kathy in Colorado we're going to get to. And we can accommodate you right now on a phone line at 833-288-3986. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And don't forget you are the one who makes the program. We're asking you, is there another period in world history in which you wish you'd been alive? Let us know what your thoughts are on that.
The most original Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
On Mother Angelica Answering the Call, Father Joseph and Doug Keck mine decades of phone calls answered by Mother Angelica. No subject is off limits and no problem too big for the wisdom and compassion of the one and only Mother Angelica.
Mother Angelica Answering the Call, Sunday afternoon, 2 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Father Joseph Mary has prepared a series of Lenten meditations to guide you through this solemn season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Sign up today at EWTN.com, Catholicism Seasons and Feast Days.
The month of March is devoted to honoring Saint Joseph. Since Saint Joseph was the foster father of Jesus, he was continually working for his family, the Holy Family, providing for them and protecting them. Saint Joseph is the patron saint of the Universal Church, unborn babies, families, fathers, those seeking employment, realtors, and a happy death. Join in this devotion to Saint Joseph with novenas, prayers, art, books, gifts, rosaries and chaplets, statues and nativity sets. Available at EWTNRC.com.
All right, we're going to get to your calls here at 833-288-3986. Another time in world history in which you had lived. Get on the line. There's an open one for you right now, and join us. We love the saints here on Take Two and on EWTN, so much so there's actually a whole bunch of information about the saints, the heroes of the Catholic faith, on the EWTN.com website. The saints, of course, serve as examples for all of us, showing how to lead a more satisfying, more spiritual life in communion with our Lord Jesus Christ. There's a comprehensive documentation of saints, And they are theologians, doctors of the church. Just visit EWTN.com and click on Catholicism.
I'm sorry I tried to discourage you from being in the time period when Jesus was walking this earth.
That's okay.
I think you would have been picked as one of his disciples.
Yeah, I would have fit right in, you know. I would have probably fled from the cross just like all of them except John, so...
It would have been cool to be able to see him in ministry and healing and just learning and growing. I mean, that would have been, and then of course it would have been very, 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 very sad to watch him go through the suffering and death, but the resurrection. So we have open phone lines. Please call in a time period in history where you wish you could have lived. You know, it's like that movie Back to the Future, right? If you could have gone back to a certain time period and you plugged in the date and you got in your car and you shot back to that date, when would it be? That give us the reasons why. It's not because we're nosy. We really want to learn and grow. So please call in. You don't have to be Catholic to call in. Matt Kabinski's waiting to answer your call. And we're asking you not to get started with your weekend yet. Please fill the phone lines, 833-288-3986. Abraham was first up, waiting patiently from Massachusetts, listening on our friends at the Station of the Cross. Hi, Abraham. Welcome to the program.
Hello. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. I like the 50s a lot. I mean, just the simpler times. They had the Latin Mass, which you don't see much anymore. You know, just family would get together, having dinner, watching, you know, Leave the Beaver, stuff like that. Kind of my, you know, and the music. I love the music, so, you know, and just, you know, more God-oriented back then.
Yeah, you mentioned family. Actually, they knew what a family was back then. Our culture today has no idea what a family is. We've kind of messed that whole thing up. Yeah. But yeah, so, well, I've got a friend here, Debbie, in the 50s, Abraham.
Yeah, I would agree. I've always said the 50s as well, Abraham, but then I changed and I was talking about today because it's just so cool to be alive today so we can make a difference for the Lord and to do some of the things that you're talking about, you know, bringing back some really wonderful values and the mindsets that keep us focused on God. So it's really interesting. I'm a history buff, Abraham. Just to let you know that I watch the History Channel probably like all the time. I just love it. And I did a lot of classes in college in history and other areas to kind of affirm that. But it was interesting, Abraham, in one of those classes, they talked about the 50s being a bit of a fantasy. And they would say that people always refer back to the 50s because it just seemed like it was so much better. But it did have its problems. Are you aware of that?
Oh, yeah, I know, like, you know, it had its own issues, but I've talked to a lot of older people, like in the 80s and 90s, and I asked, you know, were there a lot of problems back then that maybe they weren't showing on the news? And he goes, yeah, there was problems, but there was, like, very minimal. I mean, you know, there was, I guess it was easier, and the war had ended, and, you know, the economy was better, and it just, you know, so everything was more simple. And I mean, I'm sure, every decade had their issues, but it just seems more now than ever.
Yeah. Very good. Well, we agree on that. I like the 50s too, Abraham. Thanks so much. Have a blessed weekend there in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. Thanks for being part of the program today at 833-288-3986. That will open up a phone line for you to get through on today's show, talking about if there is another time in world history in which you had lived. Maybe it was the time of Jesus, maybe the Middle Ages, maybe the time of a great saint like St. Augustine and St. Monica. Maybe you wish you were alive around the time of the Protestant Reformation, so you could help to have the Counter-Reformation. 833-288-3986.
Okay, we do have an open phone line. Please call in 833-288-3986 and tell us what time period you would have liked to have lived in. We want to hear from you. And we're going to go to Kathy. And Kathy is in La Vita, Colorado on the EWTN app. Did I get your city correct?
You did.
Thanks, Kathy. Welcome to the program.
More of a town. Thank you. It's more of a town than a city, but thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Me, I'm there's a fascination, and I was born in the 1950s, but the 1940s and the World War II era, specifically the European theater of war and America's Greatest Generation, they have just been an interest of mine, like since I was a young adolescent, and I'm not really sure why, but I'm just intrigued, and the bravery of people during the war, the selflessness, of people in Europe who hid Jews from the Nazis. It's just very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I actually agree with you on that, Kathy. I think a lot of times you mentioned the heroic sacrifices that many people made, going into the wars and so forth, enlisting in the military, and you see movies about this, and it's sad, that so many lives were lost, but you see the great valor that so many people had, and then the 1940s, of course, were known for a lot of other things as well. So it was a great era in this country's history.
There were a lot of heroes that came up and were very quietly born with their courageous spirit to help others and to save others, and a lot perished. And it's interesting, Kathy. You bring up that time period. That's actually what I studied in school, and it really changed my whole life. The Holocaust and everything that the whole world went through at that time. And I don't know sometimes if we appreciate life as much now as they did back then, because the Holocaust survivors, I used to get to go to a lot of their presentations, and they would say to all of us as Americans, they would say, do you really appreciate what you have? Do you realize the freedom you have? And they would say that all the time. And I think that we need to hear more of that. What do you say, Kathy?
I agree. And also, my mom was an Army nurse in Europe, a U.S. Army nurse, and she was just the personification of God. I kid you not. And many people that of course, I am her daughter, but she was just a wonderful Catholic woman. Anyway, one of the few things that would get her angry was if she ever saw her grandchildren or anyone, if you wasted food,
right.
and Holocaust deniers. She took care of it, towards the end of the war. She helped nurse Holocaust victims, concentration camp people, back to health, or at least physical health. So, and she also saw the starvation that Germany went through, and France, and that just her stories were very amazing, and I'm sure that's part of my interest. Although my interest started before she ever started sharing those things with us kids. But yeah, and the Catholic priests who died in concentration camps. And that not only Catholic priests, but ministers who were put there because of their beliefs and because they wouldn't kowtow to the Nazis. The story, Irina Sendler, right, the Polish social worker, I believe she was, who helped save children from the ghettos in Poland. And, it just goes on and on. Of course, Anne Frank's story and the people that helped her, or her family.
Right.
To me, it's just it's almost hard for me to read novels or books about another time period, because I feel like now I'm 70. Who knows how much time I have left. It's like, no, I want to focus on that time period.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. No, a lot of food for thought, and I agree with Kathy's mom. And Kathy, I have the prayer book out. Can you give us your mom's first name?
Oh, sure. Her name was Jeanette.
Jeanette. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. Yeah. Have a blessed weekend, and we appreciate you joining us from beautiful, I'm sure it's beautiful, Levita, Colorado. 833-288-3986. Moving along here on a Friday broadcast episode of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. We have a number of calls waiting, but a line is open. So if there was another time in world history, anywhere in the world, any other time other than now, that you wish you had been alive, let us know what that was and maybe why you feel that way. 833-288-3986. And we will go to Tim in Central Texas listening on Armor of God Radio. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Great. Happy to have you with us. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, so if I could be in any time period, since March is kind of the epicenter of the history of the Republic of Texas, I would want to live from 1836 to 1845 during the height of the Republic.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so that, 2 days ago, we celebrated or commemorated, rather, Alamo Day, the fall of the Alamo and the 13 days that they held out against Santa Anna's army. And then, coming up here in a couple of weeks, we'll celebrate San Jacinto Day. And then, you guys were lucky enough in 1845 that the Republic of Texas allowed the United States to join it and, form a bigger union, form a bigger republic.
Wow. Yeah. Fascinating. We were at the Alamo, remember, Jerry?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that was on our San Antonio trip.
The one thing I want to say, Tim, is I've done a lot of speaking engagements and conferences in Texas. What I love about Texas is everybody that lives there, if you've lived there for a little bit of time or if you've been there your whole life, there's such a sense of pride, a good sense of pride in what has been accomplished with everything that Texas has gone through. And I can hear it in your voice. Do you sense it all the time that there's, they say everything's big in Texas and everything, and all that kind of taglines. But I really find that, Texas, and I feel the same way with Arizona too. We've been through a lot, and so there's this hometown pride type thing. Do you feel it all the time, Tim?
Absolutely. When I used to be in the Army, and we would get deployed somewhere, and you'd ask, the people that whatever country you were in, they'd always ask us where you were from, and I'd have other soldiers around me. I'm from, Delaware, or I'm from Florida, and the kids or whomever would kind of nod and give you that blank stare. But whenever I said I'm from Texas, all of them would go, "Oh yeah, Texas," and they could point to it on the map. And so, so I think that pride is well deserved.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, I think
agree.
in this day that we're living in right now, with people kind of relocating out of crazy states and stuff, I think a lot of people are choosing Texas as a place to go.
It's holding strong, and that's
others.
beautiful. Yeah. Tim, you're awesome. Thank you so much for gracing this conversation. We appreciate it. Now you can start your weekend. Thank you.
Love you guys. Talk to you.
Love you too, Tim. Thank you so much. Okay, Tim's going to free that phone line for you if you would like to tell us the time period. You know what? I'm just going to say this. I would not want to have been. We used to talk about the Protestant Reformation. I would not have wanted to be alive then. I'm just saying that there was too much division. Okay, but I just had to say that. Would you have wanted to have been alive during Martin Luther?
Well, yeah. I mean,
really?
Like I said, well, it afforded a lot of opportunities for standing up for the Catholic faith and defending it, and even potentially opportunities for martyrdom. So.
Oh, okay. So you were going for that martyrdom. Okay. Yeah. The number to dial
might be my only hope of getting into heaven.
Me too. 833-288-3986. Please tell us what time, what period in history you would have liked to have lived or have experienced. We really want to hear from you, and we are going to Mary.
Why don't we just pause for just a second, and then we'll get to Mary right after that.
Okay, Mary, hang on.
Hang on, Mary.
Yes, because we're going to hit the pause button, and then when we come back, Mary will be first up. But we do have social media comments coming in. A lot of people are saying the 50s, Jerry. 50s, it's winning.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and it doesn't have to be the 1950s. It could be the 1850s. It could be the 750s. If there was another time in world history in which you wish that you had been there just to experience something, maybe it was a better time than we're living in now, morally, perhaps spiritually, faith-wise. Every age, Debbie, you pointed this out. Every age has its good things and its bad things, and we would maybe wish that we were alive to be there for a part of the good things, but also maybe to be a force for good, for the bad things that were going on. So we will continue along with your calls. Mary in New Hampshire, as promised. We have Bruce, Larry, Joey, and where are you right now on this Friday? 833-288-3986.
This is the Did You Know moment with Sandra McDevitt. Did you know St. Joseph was visited by an angel 4 times? We celebrate the feast of St. Joseph, whom St. Matthew calls a just man, on March 19th. This just man was given the responsibility for the care and safety of the Holy Family. An angel was sent in 4 dreams with instructions or warnings of danger. The first time was when St. Joseph was contemplating putting aside Mary, who was with child. He was told not to be afraid, but take her as his wife. The second dream, St. Joseph was told to take his family and flee to Egypt because Herod was seeking the child's life. The third dream instructed St. Joseph to return to his home as Herod was dead. The last dream, the angel warned him not to go to Judea because it was not safe, but to Galilee. Joseph was obedient in all things. I'm Sandra McDevitt, EWTN Radio.
This is John Lewis in Rome. Join me for the latest news from the Eternal City on Vatican Insider, Saturday night, 9 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
EWTN.
Wings is a weekly newsletter that's packed with program information, features, and updates of all that's going on at EWTN. To sign up, go to EWTN.com, click subscribe, enter your name and email address, and you'll start getting your wings every week. Get your wings today. It's the weekly newsletter from EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
A beacon is a light, and we'll shine it on God's Word. I'm Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. Join me for Beacon of Truth, today at 4 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now back to Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie.
We're having a great discussion today on Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie. Thanks to the Take 2 family. You guys are lighting up the phone lines. That's the way to do it. Thank you so very much. We're talking about different time periods in history, which we would have loved to experience or lived or something of that nature, or maybe we're just observing and thinking, that would have been better if we were born then. We would love to hear from you. 833-288-3986. We're getting to Mary, as promised. I just wanted to say, Gary, this is an interesting take you have on YouTube. You said, I would like to live during the 1920s, Depression years. The Depression years, flour sack dresses were sewn with so much love and handmade lace. Every morsel of food was appreciated. Yeah. Gary, that is so true. That's true about to appreciate things. However, they have done studies on the 1920s and folks that have lived through the 1920s that they've grown up with this kind of scarcity type mentality, and it's caused them to have some issues as they got older. Did you know about that? Yeah, the 1920s. Yeah. So it's very interesting, Gary. So you can learn that appreciation, but also you can also have some things that you take into the future with you as well.
All right, back to the calls. We are people of our word. We're going to go to Mary in New Hampshire next, listening on the EWTN app. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. Nice to speak to you.
Great to have you here.
Listening to everyone talking about the 50s, and I did grow up in the 50s, and it was a wonderful time. There definitely was. We didn't have all this technology. We didn't have all of the complicated stuff. We had complications, but they were more home type things. They weren't out in the vast who knows where in the world, Right. And I think that has really changed us terribly. I mean, I love my little technology, the stuff that I use, my computer, my iPad. I mean, I love all that stuff, but I don't live with them. You know what I mean? I'm the master of them because I never grew up with them. But these kids today, they're growing up with this stuff. Their head is full of all kinds of crazy stuff. Mine was full of church, my friends, the community, you know, and everybody else that I lived with was the same way. You know, it was a much calmer time. And now, of course, the war was over, so there was a lot of good things that were happening. But there are problems, and there's problems no matter what year you live. I mean, that just goes with life, right?
Yeah.
So but I just wanted to say what my feeling about the 50s. It was a very beautiful time to live, and not having lived any other time, I don't know. But that's my experience, and I am very glad I lived in the 50s. So because now to experience now is a little wild.
Yeah. Mary, as you were talking, I just have to say this. I had all these flashbacks of rotary phones, you know, the rotary dial. They say that kids nowadays don't even know how to work it. They have no idea, you know, and I'm thinking about the World Book encyclopedias. We had the whole collection in our home. And, you know, when we do our research and by going to the encyclopedia or going to the library, going to an actual library. And I was thinking about all that. And you're right, Mary, it was so much more, I don't know, it was just easy. It really was easy. I grew up I was born in 1965, but I was the youngest of a big family. So we kind of had a 1950s mentality in my family. And it was just so peaceful and a lot of home cooked meals. We never went to a fast food place. I went to a fast food place for the first time, I think, when I was 12 years old. I don't even remember going because we always had home cooked meals. You're making me think all about that. And now I'm missing it. Was the same thing happening to you when Mary was talking?
Yeah, well, what you said something I think very poignant, Mary. You said you are the master of your devices, your gadgets, and I think that is so vitally important. And you know, like you were alluding to the fact that, you know, we have a generation now, for better or for worse. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but, you know, who are growing up that don't know life, you know, without the kind of being connected, like online, is this internet world, this virtual type of world. So I guess, you know, when the history of this particular age right now that we're living in is written, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, especially if they make comparisons to other times during world history.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say that's really cool, people talk about like Leave It to Beaver and those 1950s shows. I think it was really cool that she used to vacuum in a dress with pearls on. I thought that was really cool. I mean, so there was all these little things that you when you look at it now, you're thinking, wow, that's so kind of odd. But actually, it's quite beautiful. What do you say, Mary?
Beautiful. No, my daughter is trying to raise her 4 children. She homeschools them, and they're doing classical stuff. You know, they're reading all the old books, and she's trying to really bring them up in the faith, and it's not easy because there aren't that many Catholics out there that are wanting to do this stuff. It's for her. I feel bad for her. She was born in she's 45 now. So it's really hard. It's a hard world for them to try and she wants her family to be close. They are close, but you know, now they're getting older, so they're getting out there more in the world. They don't have iPads. They don't have telephones, but they will soon.
Yeah.
So it's going to change for them. You know, the world opens up, and it's so vast. You know, I, as a teenager, had no idea where anything was, how far away. It didn't seem far, but you get in the car and you go, and you know how far it is, right? But now, for them, they hop on a plane, and they're on the other side of the world in 24 hours. So it's a whole different thing. So I'm very happy that I lived in the 50s.
Good for you. Well, we're happy that you shared that with us, Mary. Have a blessed weekend, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right. God bless you. That line will open up there, 833-288-3986. I'm loving this conversation today.
Me too.
So, you know, kind of we look back a little bit nostalgically. Most of the calls have been, you know, in fairly recent memory. But Debbie, I'd still love to hear from anybody that they wish they were alive, you know, maybe a couple hundred years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000, maybe even before the time of Christ. A lot of interesting things happened.
They had beautiful outfits back then, like the 1700s. I mean, really.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Okay, where are we going next?
Larry is in New Jersey listening today on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Larry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I obviously have been listening, and I think that if I had a time I could select, it would probably be from the early 1940s through the end of the 50s, just because for a host of reasons, not the least of which is there was a sense that we were all in this together, and that there was nothing we couldn't do, and everybody looked out for each other. Now, having said that, the good Lord puts us here at the time that we need to be here. Mm-hmm. In that, as an example, the people who lived during the Second World War and after, it took a great sense of fortitude and effort and perseverance to get through the issues and the challenges of that time. Similarly, I think we are in the same position, in that there has to be a measure of strength and the skills and talents that we have are needed at this time in our history.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the unified country, and I wanted to kind of zero in on that, Larry, for a moment, because, we live obviously in a very polarized country and world right now, and it seems like, at least to me, that, in earlier ages, when people disagreed, they were at least a little bit more civil about it today. What do you think, Larry? The people today now, they just go on the attack, not just verbally, but emotionally, psychologically, physically. There just seems to be a total lack of restraint when there are differences and divisions in the culture that we have today. That's just my thought, Larry. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I would also add that, not only restraint, but there's a lack of respect.
Yeah, good point.
Between groups or individuals. And unfortunately, the internet and things like that have allowed people to remain anonymous and in their wholesale attacks on things. Mm-hmm. And, we have a much younger generation, in my opinion, at this time, that was raised to believe that, they were the best, everything they did was right, and, everybody else was wrong. And now we're seeing that play out not only in business and, our towns and cities, but more importantly, in our government. Mm-hmm. Because we have intractable differences, it seems, and nobody is willing to really take the time to understand another position and reach a compromise.
Right.
Or reach what is best for us, meaning my family, my city, my state, my country. Mm-hmm.
Well, and you talk about the lack of respect. It's so interesting that you said that, because even just going out and doing just your normal day-to-day work out in the world, you can see it. You can see there's people that still hold to those values and those traditions, and then those that are they're just plain rude. And it's like, wow, this has really changed. But, Larry, would you agree with this, that coming out of a war, when the whole country has to kind of band together and be of the same mindset, right? Or try to be of the same mindset. I know there's always anti-war people too, but what I'm saying is that the country comes together when there's something tragedy or something traumatic or something, a crisis or something serious, like we just got through the pandemic. But we saw a little bit of that coming together as a country after 9/11. I remember it vividly. There was a lot of people just being very just compassionate and calm and trying to really help people along because people were traumatized. What do you say to that, Larry? Do we need another wake-up call?
I think we unfortunately do. It takes something like a 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor, to really galvanize people and make them appreciate not only what they have, but be willing to put forth the effort in order to accomplish whatever the goal is, whether it's winning a war, whether it's winning the war, or addressing and resolving other societal issues.
Right. Let's just hope it's not too painful, Larry, because usually wake-up calls are very painful with a lot of death associated with it, and that's unfortunate.
Yes, I would agree. The other thing that I've noticed of late is that, for quite a while we've had, the wholesale offshoring of jobs and all of that, and a real disregard for those who have been around for quite some time and who've made really good contributions. And there's a number of employers, especially some very large employers as well, who are finding that the older Americans who went through the 50s and 60s, etc., have a greater work ethic in that, they will, they're generally more reliable. They will stick with a job until it's done, no matter the amount of effort it takes. And, they're all in it together. And, if something has to be done, will let us know what it is, and then kind of step aside and let us do the job. And I see more and more, and I think this folds into this a larger question. But I see more and more where things like work, providing for your family, etc. It's kind of really more of a task than anything else. It's kind of what you have to do in order to do all of the other fun things.
Well, Larry, you're obviously a thoughtful man. You've reflected on these things that you have shared a great deal. So we really appreciate you being with us here on this broadcast and taking part in the conversation in New Jersey. Have a blessed, wonderful weekend, brother, and we will hope to hear from you again here on the program. 833-288-3986. Just going to mention very quickly before we get back to the calls that you can join us for News Nightly tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN Radio and Television. Tracy Sable is the anchor, covering breaking Catholic news, top stories, daily reports from the White House, Capitol Hill, Rome, all over the world from a Catholic perspective. It's EWTN News Nightly, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on EWTN Radio.
And Michael on YouTube says, I would have loved to be at the premiere of Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 back in 1824. I will tell you, Michael, my sister would have loved to have been there with you. She absolutely is a big, huge fan. I tell you what, that was some great, powerful music. That's all I'm going to say.
Still is.
Yeah, it still is. But I mean, you don't see that much of it anymore. And now with this whole infusion of AI stuff, you don't even know if what you're really hearing is for real.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we're going to go back to your calls. Bruce, hang on. You're right after Leah. Leah is in Texas listening on the iCatholic Radio app. Hi, Leah. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Sure.
The time I would love to live in is I would like to be in the upper room in Pentecost to see the coming of the Holy Spirit and to be one of Mary's ladies and to experience the first Mass and to live alongside Mary until her Assumption.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Okay, that's pretty powerful, Leah. Although I tell you, when Jerry and I were in the Holy Land and we went to the upper room, do you remember? I thought it was disappointing.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I remember. Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Yeah.
It was very disappointing. Like they told us we couldn't even pray. Remember, we had to kind of be really quiet because they were sharing the space with other. I don't know. I was so looking forward to the upper room, and it was like, wow, this is it.
Yeah.
It kind of bummed me out. Have you ever been there, Leah?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
Yeah. You're right. The experience, right, with the Holy Spirit descending, and then the Blessed Mother and everyone around, and what they went through, that is very powerful. But the actual that where they marked where they believe the upper room was, there's so much going on there with people monitoring it, and you can't actually come out and publicly pray in there or something. It was so bizarre to me. I have to tell you. I never asked you that, Jerry. Did you find that odd?
Yeah, well, I think they're just trying to, make sure that, everybody's respected, all the different religions and so forth. Because like you said, that there are people of different faiths actually who go into the upper room and take tours of the Holy Land and places like that. So yeah, I remember what you're talking about. But yeah, Leah, that's a beautiful thought. You wish you were in the upper room, especially with Our Lady. With Our Lady, just share a little bit more about that. What's in your heart about wishing you were with our Blessed Mother up there?
Just being with our Holy Mother and walking alongside her, and with her total humility and dedication to our Lord, and just being next to her, and just it would just be an awesome thing. It would just
yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And would you want to, because when she lived after Jesus, right? Being with her as she reflected on everything, that would have been fascinating as well, don't you think?
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's a home run for me, Leah. I think I agree with you on that one. That's huge.
All right. Well, bless you, Leah. Thank you. We appreciate your take on this topic today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie as we head into the weekend on this Friday broadcast. Bruce in Marietta, Georgia is listening today on The Quest. Hi, Bruce.
Hey, Jerry and Debbie. How are you today?
Pretty well. Hope you are too.
Well, yes, doing pretty well for an old timer. I think the last time that I called, and the only time that I called, you were talking about my favorite music period in time, and that was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I expressed my favorite music. Kind of ties in with where I am now, but as Leah was talking, the previous caller, I got to thinking, I think each one of us could pick one or two areas in the history of the world that would have been wonderful to have lived at that particular moment. But taking into account of all the negatives and the bad things that went along with those good times or those high moments, brings me right back to my time. I was born in 1938, and I grew up in the 40s, exposed to those war years of World War II, hearing my parents voice concerns and talking about the war, hearing the news on the radio, which of course was our only source of communication. The rumors that were spreading and the concerns every time a plane would fly over, children would be afraid. So those were tough times, but I wouldn't take it away for any time. I mean, take it away from any other time in my life. I guess the big thing, in the previous caller prior to Leah, I think he took it. I had written in my little notes here, and the one thing that stands out for me, graduated high school in 1956. That whole period of time, even in the 40s and 50s, was that word respect. Mm-hmm. And I think now I go back and I think how much more respect we had for one another, even including in our entertainment, the movies. We had a higher high morale too, yes, but morals were higher. The Legion of Decency that viewed movies. I just go on about the respect for one another. I look at the young people today, and this is not being critical, but yes, maybe it is. I see young men just charging through the door before a woman. I can think if I would have ever done anything like that, charged through the door before my mother or any woman for that matter, it would have been a disaster. I think about that to this day at 86 years old, that I still have those feelings. I could not possibly walk through a door or opening a car door for a woman. I don't think that people even understood those things. All that came from the 50s. So I'm going to stick with the 50s. I don't want to live in any other time. I met my wonderful wife, and we've been together for 65 years.
Wow.
Nope. I would not want to change it, because if I would live in another period of time, I would not have met my wife. I would not have my wonderful family and the great people that I've had today. And also, just a little nod for the 60s. I am a Vatican II lover. Consequently, John Paul the 23rd is my favorite guy, which you were talking about the other day. Mm-hmm. But I think I have become closer and stronger in my faith because of Vatican II. The wonderful thing about that is that we have our Mass and our all of our devotions in a language that we can relate to, that we can understand. Furthermore, that was what the Church decided to do and chose that. So I appreciate the Latin Mass. I don't want to go back to it. But
Well, Bruce, I just wanted to say, I'm just going to make a quick comment and then toss it over to Jerry for the final comments. But Bruce, I just want to say you are a true gentleman. Thank you so much in the way you have lived and conducted your life. God bless you, sir. You have our utmost respect, and wow, you are incredible. Jerry?
No, I love all that you said, Bruce. You know, you wouldn't trade, what you've lived through and the things you've experienced. And God bless you, 65 years with your beloved bride. That is fantastic. It sounds like God has hopefully blessed you both with, good health and happiness with the family that you have. So any other last quick little comments, Bruce, before we let you go?
No. Well, I get that comment that say people sometimes will say you're amazing, you're wonderful, and all that. But I say I'm only that way because God wants me to be that way, and it's only because of Him that we have that.
Amen.
Oh, God bless you, Bruce. Thank you so much. Please call us again, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What a great note to end on.
Yeah, but Joey dropped off. I just want to say, Joey was a first-time caller, and Joey was calling in from Michigan and was saying that he raises, listen to this, he basically is raising his 9 kids like as if they were in the 1950s. Old movies and family first and all the values that come with the 1950s. I think that is so cool, Joey. It would have been fun to talk to you, but you can always call back during Unscripted.
Mm-hmm. Just a last thought. I think the early 13th century time of St. Francis would have been a good time to be alive, too.
Are you picking every single century? You started
when God
with
told
Jesus,
St. Francis, rebuild my church,
Yeah, that's true.
But in every age, like we've talked about, the opportunities are there to be virtuous, godly, holy, a saint. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we encourage you all to be saints, be holy, be happy. We want you to be happy in life, and we thank you so much for listening to today's broadcast of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Monday. What is one? Go ahead. Let them know what's on Monday.
What's one thing you would never say to your spouse? Uh-oh.
Just have to make sure he or she isn't listening when you say that on the show on Monday. Today's the feast of St. John of God, so may he intercede for us and pray for us all of the angels and saints. Thank you, affiliates, for carrying the program. Thank you, show team. We had the great show team in place, Matt, Charles, and Michael today as well. So
I'm waving to YouTube, Facebook. You guys are awesome. Thanks for all the prayers. Okay, now you can get started with your weekend, okay? Until Monday, have a beautiful and blessed weekend. We'll see you real soon.
When you find yourself peering into life's rearview mirror,